Minister, how are you?
I'm well, Paul. I hope you're good.
Somebody was telling me, one of our people here was telling me that you have done more press conferences in the last 5 months than you did in the last 4 years. Is it true?
It's possible.
Why have you had to do plenty press conferences?
No. I think it's because of the structure of the communications program we are running. You know, before I became minister, mostly what we had was the meet the press. I think now people are even forgetting that there's something called meet the press. So that was like a monthly exercise or like every 2 weeks where a minister comes to speak. Now, our democracy is evolved. Things are in real time. It's on social media. Conversations are going on. So what we've done is to introduce a new product we call the Minister's Press Briefing, where either myself or a colleague minister will come either on a Sunday or on a Wednesday to respond to issues. Admittedly, in the first quarter of this year or this first half of the year, there have been a lot of issues coming up. And so if you are there Wednesdays and Sundays, if you do the count, we may be equaling what we've done in the last
Why the
4 years.
Sundays? Interesting. It's very interesting.
Well, I mean, if you follow the U.S. political market, for example, you find out that Sundays are actually the calmest moments where you can have deeper political conversations. We think that in the midst of a clutter, Sunday is a good time to start off a conversation and get different perspectives.
When I asked some of our colleagues in the media, though, they said that, I asked, why is Kojo doing press conference on Sunday? They said, but he's mafia. He wants to lead the story on Monday morning. This is mafia things.
No, it's not mafia.
But every Sunday has led the story on Monday.
Well, but if you're looking for a calm period during which you can get message across, I think Sunday is not a bad time.
Fix the country. Has it failed?
I hope it hasn't. I hope it hasn't because it triggered something that I believe, and indeed many people in government believed, was giving us an opportunity to have an open, frank conversation about what it takes to fix some things in this country. I think at some point there was an attempt to politicize it, and that is what may have lost it part of the traction that it was getting, even from neutrals, from people from the MPP stock and from the NDC stock. And you know, once you start politicizing things, people will move into their dimensions. But essentially, my understanding of it was that it was a platform that was aimed at pushing for a quick resolution to some matters: roads, economic issues, energy, jobs, etc. Now, you notice that government has been pushing this conversation for a while now. You don't always get the traction. Sometimes you are competing with Efia Odo and all sorts of things, Polo, and all sorts of things that are happening.
Yeah.
Admittedly, because they are all news and public matters that catch people's attention. So this time, when you get it on the reverse side, that particularly the youth that you need are now the ones pushing the conversation, it gives you an opportunity to mainstream part of that conversation. And I think our expectation was that the other half of it, of what is our collective responsibility to fix things together, will now come to the table. Unfortunately, it appears to be going on the downside. But we think that it's important to continue the conversation and to continue talking about what it takes to fix the myriad of issues around us and our collective responsibility.
That's why people fight with the officials of government. This collective responsibility. They say that you people take the taxes. We don't take taxes, so we have no role.
No, it's not.
What's the collective thing
about?
No,
it's not true. I mean, take roads, for example, and just on Sunday and this week, we've been talking a lot about roads. The minister responsible for roads is giving us some interesting data. Ghana has 78,000 kilometers of roads. 78,000 kilometers of roads. And as we speak, what has happened is that, or let's say by 2017...
Hold on, this 78,000 includes everything?
Yeah, everything. Ghana's total road.
So I go to Hacho, Atomic, that small
road.
All
of that is 78,000 kilometers.
Oh, they have data like that?
They have data like
that's
that.
That's impressive, by the way.
And some change.
That's
now,
impressive.
He explains to us at the time that he assumed office in 2017, we had done only about 23% of that. 23% of that 78,000 had been paved. So you can weather the math. I think
paved means what? Asphalted?
With bitumen on it. So that brings it to
23%.
Yes.
Okay.
If you do the math, that will bring it, I think, to what? Is it 18,000 or so?
Something like that.
Okay. So net that off. That will bring you down to about 60,000 kilometers of roads as at 2017 January.
Unpaved.
And then he explains to us that in the last 4 years, what was done was close to 4,000. Now, first of all, two things. You got to net or compare that 4,000 to what was done every other 4 years before. And it will tell you the pace at which we are fixing our roads. Now, when you net that 4,000 of the 60,000 or so, that brings you to about 54,000 outstanding as at now. What they did on Sunday was to announce a program that currently the various road contracts that have been given amount to about 11,000 kilometers. Assuming we're able to complete that 11,000 in these 4 years, that will shave off 11,000 off that 54. And then you have an outstanding And if successive governments are all doing about 11,000 kilometers in 4 years, give or take, what is it? Is it 20 years or so? We should have all this question about.
Yeah, but the 78 may be expanding.
Well, may or may not. It's not everywhere that you are going to necessarily construct new route corridors.
Okay.
Remember, this is all about the corridors that already exist that are not paved. Now, he says to us that from the program they have and the funding arrangements they have, he thinks they can finish about 6,000 of them in these 4 years. And the other outstanding will be work in progress. The question that drops from it is, what does it take to finish this 6,000 even, as he has put there? A lot of it is money. A good chunk of it is technical support. So the government has a responsibility. The technocrats have a responsibility. But the people have a responsibility. And I'll explain. The responsibility of the government is to ensure that the resources are mobilized, the technocrats are doing a job, and the roads are fixed. And even in so doing, the minister has extended what you call the warranty period for roads from about 1 year now to 5 years.
What does it mean, warranty period?
So what it means is that previously, if you're a contractor and you built a road, you had 1 year to maintain it, after which anything that happens on the road is not the problem of government. Now, to ensure that contractors are doing a quality job, it's been extended to 5 years.
Okay.
So when you build a road, for 5 years, you are responsible for it.
So you most likely do it well.
So it is a major introduction to ensure that the phenomenon of shoddy jobs goes down. But now when you come to what it takes to fix, even the 6,000 kilometers of roads, if you look at the funding options, what comes from the road fund? Very limited. Very often you're having to borrow. Look at what happened when Kufuor tried to do the Gang of Four roads with GOG funding. It's been there up till now, and we're now trying to find some more resources to do it. So very often governments like to do debt for roads. So they find a particular credit facility, attach it to a particular road. Now, the minister has indicated right from the beginning, it was reiterated by the minister responsible for finance at the time, Oseiche Mensah Bonsu, that we'll need to look at the road fund and up it so that we can get a significant volume of funds into the road fund.
What's the maximum of it now?
Currently, they are getting, I think, about 1 billion, 1.2 billion a year into the road fund based on the tolls we are paying. Now, there's a conversation about what 1.2 billion can do. If today the commitments are about 8 billion to finish, and you need about $10 billion, which is about 60 billion cedis, to finish the entire road network, 1 billion cedis a year will not do it for us as quickly as we want. Or do we want to go and borrow some more money against our current constraints? And that's where the citizen conversation comes.
Do we want to increase the road toll? Is that an
option?
That
is the conversation we have to have. That is a conversation that Honorable Minister has mentioned needs to come back on the table. Of course, he has to come through cabinet. There's a whole process for governance. He has to do his memos, do his justifications, come to cabinet, get cabinet approval, and then he can come to the public and say, this is what cabinet has approved.
But the citizens will say that they are tired. They've been taxed so heavily.
Well, it's a chicken and egg situation. So what Fix-It does is that it gives us an opportunity to have this conversation. What is the role of government? What is the role of the technocrats who were previously supervising some of those shoddy jobs? And what is the role of the citizen? And so it is in that context that I say it was a fantastic opportunity. It will be disappointing if it's, just a fact that it's gone. But we need to continue having that conversation so that we collectively commit to what it takes to get things done. Because you cannot build a country by yourself as a government. You need the citizen input and participation. If you are fighting, let's say, illegal small-scale mining, you can't do it by yourself. You need citizen participation and support to get to the next mile. And it is in that context that I say that this is a good opportunity that we shouldn't lose.
Is it because politicians promise too much? When you're running the campaign, you promise too much, and so then
I'm not sure.
When we tell you that fix it and do the promise, then you say we are all involved.
I'm not sure it's about politicians promising too much or citizens being irresponsible totally or this being that. You see, developing the country requires different people to play different roles. What is important is that consistently we have those national conversations about our various roles. We can't dump it all on citizens. We can't dump it all on government. You can't dump it all on civil society or the media. In reverse, you can't blame just one person for it. It is that regular interaction of the various forces of society for each to realize that we have an obligation in this enterprise that will get us to that end.
Did you meet with them?
The
Fix the Country people?
Personally, I wasn't there. Ministers of Finance and National Security and Justice, I think about 6 other ministers had the opportunity to meet with them. and actually to express some level of pleasure at the fact that they had started this conversation. And the fact that the government had also been doing a number of things. So two things needed to happen. It was important to showcase to them and bring them along what the government was doing. It was also important to solicit their support in expanding that conversation so that in the end, we all see ourselves in how we are fixing this Ghana together. My understanding, and since both sides issued social media statements after the meeting, my understanding, the brief I had, was that, first of all, they were pleased that their concerns had been taken this seriously by a whole government delegation of about 6 ministers. And government was pleased that they had this initial conversation. They exchanged contacts and agreed that they would explore ways of meeting further. But that has not materialized.
But the Sunday press conference that you organized for the finance minister, what was it intended for?
Well, first of all, it's part of our briefings, as I mentioned earlier. But it was also intended to update the country on something that President Akufo-Addo had hinted early 2020, which maybe we missed, but which was now manifesting. He said that we know how to bring the economy back to life, but for human beings, we don't know how to bring them to back. Why did he have to say that? Because we were coming from an economic trajectory where we had gone so low that we now had to actually go to the International Monetary Fund and go for a bailout. That we can't handle this anymore. We need your help. Give us some money and some technical advice to fix this. From there, things kept going down until 2017 when President Akufo-Addo's administration took over. And everybody will attest to the gradual uptick of the Ghanaian economy. Perfection? No. Everybody got a job? No. Everybody got satisfied? No. But it cannot be denied that there was a gradual improvement of our situation until COVID hit us. Now, the president's point in March or so 2020 was that what is going to happen, and if you read the theory of pandemics and pandemic management, whenever you are hit with a pandemic, you have a twin crisis. You have the health crisis, and then it's often followed by a financial or an economic crisis, because in dealing with the health crisis, the measures that you take will end up affecting the economy. The president's point was that we're going to have to sacrifice all of these economic gains. The economy is going to go down. But it is better to sacrifice all of that and protect people's lives, because for the economy, we know how to bring it back to life. If we say we want to preserve the economic gains we have made and keep on that trajectory, just so that we have a good economic record, people are going to die. And when people die, we can't bring them back to life. I don't know if perhaps at that time we did not catch on to what he was saying. But what he spoke of is what now in January, February, March 2020, when we had gradually made some success in saving lives, people now started raising, okay, so how do we fix the economy? So what the finance minister came back to do was to say, don't worry, this is what the president spoke about. That is why we put in place a plan called the Ghana Cares or Batampa program, which is aimed at injecting this economy back to life. And then went on to outline the various things that had already been put in and announced, maybe, you know, because of the conversations. And that's why I said sometimes you don't get the full national attention because the nation's attention is consumed with something else. And so what he did was to reiterate what had been said, what had been done, what had been outlined, and the next steps. And you notice that just a few days ago, he came back to speak to one of the first elements in that, the National Development Bank, and how it's going to play a role in getting all of this done.
That's very articulate sounding. I mean, maybe you should put the phone lines on, let people ask him a few questions, but I've never heard this bring the people back. And we had talked about the sloganeering of it. But tonight, Information Minister is giving us a real minister. So you are saying that all of this economic situation discomfort was predicted?
If you have studied the history of pandemics, this is not new. When you have a pandemic and you are shutting down economies, people can't move, all of these things happen. Your economy is going to literally grind to a halt. Look at what is happening to some of the economies that have literally, I mean, for some economies, the argument is that they are just not seeing it, but they're actually in a recession.
Yes.
Ghana has dropped from an average 7% growth to about 0.5, some say 0.9% in 2020. Why? Because you had to shut down major economic activity, because the major things that you were doing to get this economy on track, you had to halt them. When you halt them, revenues were not coming into the national kitty. At the same time, you have to spend more. No, not just what you have programmed, more. So your deficit is going to get wider than you had even programmed. Remember, we had brought down the deficit from about 11% or the adjusted 6% down to under 5% and had actually capped it by law. That never again should any administration go beyond 5% unless with the prior approval of Parliament. Now, because of all of this and COVID fiscal implications, what is it? 23 billion Ghana cedis, 23 billion Ghana cedis, 23 billion Ghana cedis. Think about it.
Spent on COVID.
Fiscal implications, revenue that did not come in.
Revenue loss, okay, and then the
extra
overspending,
expenses.
Yeah.
So in the end, you are not growing, you are spending money to hold the situation. The theory tells you that every time this happens, you are going to have an economic challenge. But that one, you can bring it back to life if you know how to do it. But if you do like what some heads of state did, and you've seen the heads of state who went that way, that they were not going to take any measures aimed at mitigating the health crisis because they didn't want to sacrifice the gains in the economy. Take Trump, for example. I think we can be bold and open about it. One of the considerations of the Trump administration was that the economy was one of their strongest points. If you shut down the economy and jobs are suffering and hardships, you lose the election. In many of those economies, you will now find out that death rates were a lot higher, the human cost was higher, and sometimes even consequently gets to the political side. So the theory is that you can sacrifice the economy, and if you know how to bring it back to life, that way you can do it. If you don't do that, and you allow people to die, you can't bring the people back to life. And that's exactly where we are. And that is why, right at the beginning of the year, the Ghana Cares About Tampa program was outlined that this is what we are going to have to use to bring the economy back to life. So today, it is a good thing that people have caught on to the conversation that how do we fix this economy? And what Finance Minister was saying that, guess what? This is what we're talking about all along. Now, can we do this?
So we are in good hands. That's what it's
We're in good hands.
Okay. In 5 minutes, we'll be going off Metro TV. We'll continue on social media. So get Good Evening Ghana Official on Facebook, and I'll be announcing the changeover when it occurs. Okay, let's move on. Galamsey.
Yeah.
The Intellectual Society is that you have a call? Okay, let's take just one call before we continue. Hello? 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 We lost it. Okay. Galamsey, this burning excavators now. The Intellectual Society is divided.
Yeah.
Something that this is property. It can be used for many things.
Yeah.
And the division includes people in MPP.
Yeah.
Why are you destroying property? If you arrive at the Galamsey place, the guy cannot proceed to do this. Okay, you take the excavator. On your screen is one such excavator. Let me see whether you can get a bent one. If you can get a bent one, that would be good. But that's one such excavator. So you take the excavator from him. You can pack it at Burma Camp. You can pack it at Parliament House. Why are you burning it?
So first, it's not strange that even the intellectuals are divided. I mean, sometimes the Supreme Court itself splits down the line, 5-4, 6-3. Sometimes they go unanimous. But it is not strange in itself that even intellectuals are divided. Now, if you say that this is property being used for an illegal act, and therefore the option has to be to seize it and proceed to deal with it in a particular way, it is an opinion that I'm sure a good number of people will not disagree with.
Let me take this one call.
Yeah.
Hello? 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 Ernest, your callers are not talking. Hello? Oh, the equipment is not working. Hello? Okay, please go on. We won't take any calls. I don't want to interrupt you. Let's hear him.
No, so I'm saying that if you make that argument, it is an opinion that many people cannot fault you with. But I think we've been down that road before. And it turned out with more complications than an attempt to resolve the matter. Today, the instruction is very simple. And today, let's be careful. It's not an all-out war against small-scale mining or mining in any form. It is a specific exercise of mining in water bodies, which already is prescribed by law.
Yes.
So what you are doing is that you are using an asset.
So Minister, look at this on your screen now.
Yeah, you are using an asset. Yeah, I know. You are using an asset to commit an illegality.
Yes.
That's what you are doing. And you are making an argument that, okay, so why don't they seize or preserve the asset? The instruction that the Ghana Armed Forces have is to remove all persons and logistics that are being used for mining in water bodies or about 100 meters from the water bodies.
100 meters?
Yes.
Some people say they are 500 meters.
Well, I'll come to that one. Those are the exceptions. And Paul, this gold business is got a lot of money involved in it. And if you are not clear and definite on what you want to do, you will never be successful with it. First of all, there is no...
Because of the power of influence?
Because of the power of influence. Let us all learn from our past. When Operation Vanguard was in full throttle, let's not lie to ourselves. When Operation Vanguard was in full throttle, and soldiers and policemen were embedded in the forest and around, we all agreed that they were being corrupted. They were being corrupted by miners, chiefs, politicians, all persons associated with it. And in the end, what we were looking for was not what we were getting fully. And so a totally different approach has been arrived at. And a red zone has been declared. Water bodies, not general concessions. Water bodies. So if you, first of all, the question must be asked, even before we come to this question about why don't you seize? The question, what is the excavator doing in the middle of a river?
But is that what is happening?
That is what is happening.
No, but they showed us videos where they are 200 meters away, like what you're seeing now.
They have
it's like a pond that they've drawn the water from somewhere.
No, if you have a good aerial video. And that's why the Ghana Armed Forces went with a helicopter. Because sometimes what you get is that people do one side filming and then come and tell a narrative on it. That's why the Ghana Armed Forces went with a whole helicopter.
To look at everything.
Yeah. And journalists to fly over and look at everything. So you have people who have put excavators in water bodies or around water bodies. That's one. You have people who have diverted the course of the river into ponds they have created. Go look at the Brim River now and the footage.
So when they divert the river to another place,
yes,
does the river get destroyed?
They create deep dams, deep ponds and dams, and then they divert the river into these dams, 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 or 10 dams, and now the bed where the river used to pass no longer has river there.
So it's turning. The river is now turning.
But it's no longer even flowing. It's now dammed into those dams. So if you look at the Brim and some of the other rivers, when you fly over the course, you can't find the river anymore. You find dams of water on the sides of the river. And now on what used to be the river bed is where the excavators are and are mining. That is a different technology from those who use the champagne. They don't divert the water. They go put the champagne in the river bed.
That's a smaller equipment.
Yes, and mine. Both are doing the same thing. So the instruction to the Ghana Armed Forces is quite clear. Demobilize. Make sure that no logistics are present for that purpose. Because nobody has any business being there. Now, if somebody says that I am not in the water body but I have been affected, that's a matter that can be investigated and dealt with. Because
no, they say they are 500 meters away. They have dams there.
I am coming.
And they've taken it from the river.
I am coming. I'll come to that. If somebody says I am not in the water body, so I am exempted, that can be investigated and a determination can be made. And if the soldiers have gone out of turn, it can be dealt with. But there are many other instances of people who are actually outside the 100 meters who have done a clever trick of connecting machines, so pumps and huge tubes into the water body, sucking the water onto their mining concession and pumping the dirty material back into the river.
I saw a soldier's video.
Same effect.
So you may be 500 meters away.
But you are doing the same thing. And in that case, the soldiers will act.
And you may have Minerals Commission permit.
In fact, there was one mine, I think Kibi Gold Fields or something, which is a legitimate large-scale mine outside the 100 meters radius. They had been given permit by, I think, Water Resources Commission to pool water. What they were in reality doing was they were pulling the water and pumping the material back into the water. And therefore, they were affected by the operation. So, I don't think it's out of pleasure that the soldiers themselves or the government officials who are responsible.
Can't we carry the excavator away from there and bring it to
But you saw what happened when, the last time that was attempted. We've got to learn from our past. Let's not mince words about it. We have to learn from our past. Okay, but can't you
bring it to Bema Camp? Bring all the excavators to Bema Camp.
I'm saying that the soldiers have been given instructions to demobilize and to ensure that they are not there. And they have their own standard rules of operation on how they do that.
But they are burning trucks too, you know that.
Well, today, the instruction is what they are following. It may be unwholesome for persons who are involved. But I think there's clarity that mining in water bodies, and if you are not mining in a water body, you ought not to have a problem. Mining in water bodies, 100 meters away from water bodies, is prohibited. And if you are doing it, then these consequences will have to come to bear on what you are doing.
That's very, very... but of course, the issues about some important party people of your party and all that is being reported that they say that they have been affected by the exercise.
I've heard.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I heard some PR people say that, well, the MPP can say that we are administering a policy without fear or favor.
I don't think that the exercise that is going on is even focused on political colours. You recall that the National Consultative Dialogue that my brother Abu Jinapo led beautifully on behalf of the president, all parties were united that this must be fought. You had representatives of different political parties chairing different panels. They were united that this is a canker that must be dealt with. When we traveled to visit the Pra River, Paul, and I challenge you, go there with your camera crew. You'll be shocked if today it hasn't improved. You'll be shocked. At the banks of the Pra River, you would see for yourself chemicals. Aquatic life is gone in the Pra River. I tell you myself, aquatic life, you won't find fish in there. Dead, gone. Cyanide, mercury, etc. Chemicals. The Ghana Water Company Limited pumps that draw in water from the Pra to water stations for treatment. They are having to replace their drawing pumps on a regular basis because the kind of chemicals and mud that is coming from the Pra, even the machines can't sustain it. So if you are tackling a problem like this, it can't be a hanky-panky exercise of, what is comfortable. It is a difficult set of decisions that have had to be made. But I think there's a very simple solution. Don't mine in the water body. Don't go 100 meters away from the body.
So where do you get water from then? To wash your gold?
According to the small-scale mining processes and the Act, you dig your own dam, you dig your own borehole, you dig your own dam, draw water from your borehole, use it for your operations, and filter it back into the dam.
So you dig all the way till you meet water?
Yes, you dig your borehole, you create your dam, you use it for your processes, and then you discharge your waste.
Let me say good night to our viewers on Metro TV. So our viewers on Metro TV, good night. And we continue on Facebook. Good evening, Ghana Official at Facebook. Okay, please go on. So you have to, you get a concession like this table. Yes,
you have to dig your own borehole.
So if I dig and I don't get water, or I will get water?
You have to dig until you find water there. I mean, look at those who are mining oil. You have to do your wells and do your seismic data. It's all part of the industry because the returns in that industry are quite significant. So you have to drill your own borehole, dig your own dams, pick water from your borehole to do your operations, go back into your dams and keep filtering your water for that purpose. But you are not allowed to come and draw water from the water body and discharge
back into
the waste with the chemicals, etc., back into the water body. You are not allowed to do that.
So where does AGC get water from?
Well, they would have to come up with their own water systems where they are operating for that purpose. And whether you're a large-scale mine or a small-scale mine is not the question here. It's about the practices. The war is against illegal and irresponsible mining. It's not about large-scale or small-scale or whether you have a license or not a license. You are not supposed to go into water bodies or 100 meters away from the bodies. You are not supposed to be discharging material into those water bodies. You are not supposed to be diverting the courses of rivers and mining in the river bed. And that is what.
How do you relate to the argument, finally on this one, how do you relate to the argument that we are collapsing people's businesses? The NPP government is collapsing people's
If you make that argument, then what you are suggesting is that any form of illegality, to the extent that the proprietor can claim is a business, can be justified.
Okay, I get that.
And I don't think that that is the argument we want to uphold. I don't think so. And that is why there are legal ways of doing it. So it's not about somebody's business. Else, then everybody else can indulge in some illegality and say, that's my business. So is mining in water bodies a business that is allowed by law? Respectfully, the answer, as I know it to be, is no. If it is no, then you can't do it and say that your business is being collapsed. If you have a large-scale concession or a small-scale concession, and you are doing it in accordance with law, and somebody comes there under the pretext of this operation to affect, then you have a legitimate case, and that case can be looked to. And I'll be the first to support you on that particular
Have your
matter.
constituents been affected by this? Not
that I am aware of. We don't have any significant mining in our area. There used to be some diamond operations around Akwatia and its environs that come into our area. But no, not very significantly in our area.
I see. You don't have gold in you. Do you have a rivers in your area?
We do. The brim
it goes through.
Passes through parts of my constituency.
Okay, next issue, Caleb. We've had Caleb Kuda. You paid a visit to CT.
Yes.
What did they tell you?
Well, they reiterated to me the report as Caleb had given them, which they said they believed 100% had no basis not to disbelieve him. I, as a friend and an industry person and minister for the sector, went in when I heard, because the reports were worrying and did not reflect the standard operating procedures of the National Security Ministry. and by extension, any of the agencies under the ministry, be it the Signals Bureau or the National Intelligence Bureau. So it was out of worry with which we visited. But I think what also happened was that very, very quickly, the National Security Ministry commissioned an internal probe, which probe they executed with dispatch and came to the view that some persons who had been sent there on secondment did not conduct themselves in accordance with the standard operating procedure. And they then returned these persons who had been seconded to their mother agencies that had brought them there. I know people have outstanding questions about if the National Security Ministry is of the view that what he did was unlawful, then what are they doing about that? And I think it's a legitimate question. But primarily, I think the psyche with which the National Security Ministry came to this matter was the worry with which we all received the report of what had happened. And that is what they sought to cure at that point in time. But in the broader industry sense, we had also been working to ensure that the safety of journalists is upheld. Remember, just a week or two ahead of that, we had now finally set up the Office for the Safety of Journalists under the National Media Commission. So when I went there, I encouraged them that they should make a report to the National Media Commission, for the National Media Commission to do its own independent investigations and satisfy itself what had happened and make its own recommendations. And my understanding is that National Security so first of all, they have gone there to make a formal report. I spoke to Bernard, he told me they've made the
to the National Media Commission.
Yes, they sent me a copy, yes. And NMC has started investigations and they've written to National Security Ministry and to Omni Media to come forward and to advance their cases. And they will look into it and come to a certain resolution of that matter beyond the internal investigations of the ministry and its immediate actions as well.
But the fallout now is that the ministry has returned some people back to their...
to the agencies from where they were seconded.
And it is reported that a certain Lieutenant Colonel Ajiman, who was mentioned principally, has been made a commanding officer of the 64 Infantry Battalion. People are worried about that.
So I've sent a dispatch to my colleague Minister for Defense asking, I mean, if it's true or not. These days you see all sorts of things in the media. So I've sent a dispatch trying to get some clarity whether it is true or not, because I do understand that actually those appointments go through some processes. So I don't know about that. I'm sure I'll get the revert on it. But I think that the work of the Ministry of National Security can be looked at and commended for what they have done. There's a ministry, or there's an outfit that had a very terrible past record and has been going through a process of reforms, and now has been designated as an intelligence gathering entity, not formally the BNI, etc., that we knew it to be. So you notice that now they have two agencies that are intelligence gathering agencies, the Signals Bureau by law, and then the National Intelligence Bureau. And then they have, I think the final part of this reform exercise has to do with what they call the operatives under the ministry. Because you know, if you speak to the former national security coordinators, all of those who've handled that portfolio, they'll tell you that there are some national issues that require a certain presence of operatives and a SWAT team there to respond to. That is the one that they are still, I think, going through the process of reforming. And that is not like a standing force there. They are drawn from secondment from the police and military. If people have been seconded and they found that persons have not conducted themselves well, and then they have done the good thing of not covering up, but have named and returned these people, you can commend the ministry for what they've done. If these people haven't been taken back to their mother agencies, if indeed it is true, have assigned them other roles or have promoted them or have done other things, we can interrogate that one and look at it. But I don't think that we should just dismiss all that the ministry has done because of what we are hearing may have happened within the army circles. And I think that in the coming days we can pay attention to that and interrogate that properly.
So because of the National Media Commission investigation, you're not able to tell us your own views of the matter, can you?
It's pending before the NMC, even though it's not a court.
Will you be writing to the NMC? Will you be appearing before?
I am not a party in this matter, but they are investigating it, and it will be important for them to finish and tell us what they found in this matter.
National Development Bank.
Yeah.
Imani are not happy with it. They think that we have too many development banks. And then I saw some...
But we don't have any development banks.
There's Exim, there's ADB.
No. Those are not development banks properly so-called.
There's Agricultural Development Bank.
No, Agricultural Development Bank is a commercial bank. So I think that it's important for us to start by asking, what is it? Before people get into some of these things. Sometimes I find that...
Before then, though, I saw this post on Facebook. They said, we used 21 billion to collapse a bank. It was trending, even on Twitter. we used 21 billion to collapse a bank, and we are borrowing 170 million to start a new bank. No, and then we need to explain to people what this is
First
about.
First of all, this narrative that we collapsed banks, as unfortunate as it is, I think by now anybody who is following and paying attention to what has happened must realize that that's not the case. The financial services sector in this country went into a deep crisis even before President Akufo-Addo became president. Remember the asset quality review reports of 2014, 2013, 2015. Remember President Mohammed's own admissions of the challenges of the sector and his desires of how those challenges should be resolved. President Akufo-Addo came to power, and the governors of the central bank said this cancer cannot continue and that it needs to be resolved. Why? Because you had institutions that had literally gone under, were floating in name, didn't have money to continue, and the Bank of Ghana would literally at the end of the month or a quarter give them money ostensibly to pay salaries and try and settle some of the liabilities that they had. And they had to bring down the gavel at a point in time. And they allowed what they call a purchase and assumption transaction. So they allowed the bigger banks that were more liquid to take up the liabilities of these banks while they work to chase the assets. Because if you didn't, they had created assets, but many of these assets were toxic assets, and the liabilities were hanging. That's not collapsing the banks. And they ended up saving, how many? About 3,000 jobs. And if you added these 3,000 jobs to the actual jobs that were lost, then it means everybody in that sector would have lost a job. So this exercise actually ended up saving the deposits of about 4.6 million Ghanaians, saved about 3,000 jobs in there. So it's not collapsing the banks. And it cost money. It cost the government some money to give to the Bank of Ghana to underwrite those liabilities. Now, apart from that, there is an existential challenge that the commercial banks in this country have. Commercial banks like ADB is not a development bank per se, it's a commercial bank. They all have universal banking licenses, ABSA, Merchant Bank, Standard Chartered, and all of these ones.
Even Exim?
Exim is not a commercial bank per se. But all of these commercial banks have the same challenge of having to mobilize deposits from you and I. So I take my small 3,000 there, you take your 3,000 there. We can go for it next month. Your wife can ask for a check tomorrow morning. And so the effect is that the bank does not have access to patient money at low rates so that it can do the other function of lending it to the private sector or the real sector of the economy that needs that money to inject for growth. And that has been one of the banes of our funding growth in this country. You want agriculture to grow. We are finding out that the kind of loan portfolio, if you put all the portfolios in the central, portfolios in the banking system, that goes to agriculture and manufacturing. They are in single digits. They are not getting more than 10%. The loans, the total banking sector, credit to, is not up to 10%. So you need to help the commercial banks by finding cheap money that is long term and that can then go into some of these areas. So the National Development Bank is not a commercial bank, it's a wholesale bank that mobilizes big cheap money from governments, from international development organizations, and makes that money available to the commercial banks. So it's actually here to help the commercial banks.
Oh, so it's a bridge type of thing. It's going
it's a wholesale bank.
Wholesale to lend to
the banks.
ADB.
Yes, to ADB.
NIB.
And NIB. And ABSA. And all of these other
Omni
banks.
Bisage.
Yes.
So that I can go to Omni.
So that you can go to Omni and say that, listen, I am actually trying to expand my
studios.
Your studios or your ICT related business, because today the tech space is growing and you need money that will be patient for 5 years at a low rate, so to do. Now, if you went to the traditional banks under the current system, they will have difficulty in finding that money for you. So what the National Development Bank has done is to take $200 million of government money, to get another $250 million from the World Bank, 170 million euro from the European Investment Bank to capitalize and to grow some loans or liability on its books. And they're going to lend it to agriculture, to manufacturing, to ICT.
Indirectly lend it.
To housing-related businesses that are coming through the commercial banks. So what they're going to do is to on-lend to commercial banks and non-bank financial institutions, and they will now be responsible for lending to the private sector in these areas that I've outlined.
And they will,
because these are the private.
But they will lend to the private sector on a particular rate?
Well, so that is one of the things. So there are two things. You want to be sure that they are lending for the purpose. You want to be sure that they are lending at the rate. The EIB facility is at 0.5% for 20 years. So part of the agreement that you would expect the National Development Bank, or what we call the Development Bank Ghana, to have with the banks that take that money is that, one, you're going to use it for the purposes as I've outlined: agric, manufacturing, ICT-related businesses, housing.
You're going to check that.
So it is part of those terms of lending. Now, when we are doing World Bank projects in Ghana, you see World Bank officials coming here inspecting projects, etc.
Yeah.
So part of those exercises is to ensure that they have an opportunity to audit and to validate. If you took $1 million from the Development Bank Ghana, that you're going to use it to lend to agric and manufacturing and ICT, you must be expectant that when they come and audit your books, they will find that you have grown your loan portfolio by $1 million to these sectors, and you didn't use the money to come buy treasury bills with government.
How would they be sure that you would lend at 0.5 or 1.1%?
Again, this auditing process, which will be part of the terms that you are going into as you are taking their money, allows them to examine your books. And so if you come for the money, and it's not difficult, you come for $1 million, we have to see that your books have grown by a certain $1 million in these specific areas. We have to be sure, because all the rates that you are giving all of these people, they are, open book items.
So you're going to create a parallel regulator of the industry, isn't it?
No, the Bank of Ghana is regulating this Development Bank Ghana, but it is regulating it with a different piece of legislation. It's not Act 630, if I'm correct, which is the banking...
At 930.
Act 930, yes, which is the Banking and Specialized Deposit Taking Institutions Act. They are regulating it with the Development Financial Institutions Act, which is a special piece of legislation set up for development banks and development finance institutions. So no, it's still the Bank of Ghana, but it's a different set of rules for them.
That's interesting. So National Development Bank, when is it starting?
July. We expect it to start in July. There's a headhunt for the very first layer, which is the governing board or the governing council. And from what I understand, it's a global search. We're not necessarily looking, even though we believe in Ghanaian talent, we're not necessarily just limiting ourselves to a certain Ghanaian pool. So it's a global search for some of the best brains in development banking to be on the governing council. And then appointments will follow, and then they can do their own hiring. I think the caveat also is to understand that they are not going to be having branches across the country. It's a small shop here in Accra that lends to the banks on High Street.
Oh, okay.
So
they're going to be employing 2,000 people?
I don't think so. They are not going to be having branches across the country. They are going to be a small wholesale bank that onboards a few hundreds of millions, hopefully billions of dollars from all over the world, and then they can make it available to the banks and non-banking financial institutions here in Ghana. And then they will lend to you and to me and to our colleagues who are watching us who want to do agriculture and ICT and housing and manufacturing and the parts that we believe can bring growth and jobs and incomes to the Ghana.
So some businesses are not qualified to borrow from this fund?
Well, the banks are the ones who are borrowing.
Okay.
Then you go to your bank, and if the credit you are looking for fits into the priority areas, bless you.
I see. That's interesting. Three heavy hits from Kojo Oppong Nkrumah. Will be on social media. We'll isolate them for you to see. Those of you who are dozing off. Fix the Country, we talked about it. Galamsey, we talked about it. Caleb Kuda, we're going to isolate that one as well. And then we just talked about the National Development Bank. Parliament resumes soon?
Yes, we're actually back from today. Today we had a lot of statements on African...
you are back today?
Yes.
You started today?
Yes, we did. We had a lot of statements today from the African Union Day. We're expecting a number of bills. The Standards Authority Bill. One of the interesting bills we're expecting is the Exemptions Bill, which will now spell out in law who and what qualifies for tax exemptions in this country, beyond what is in the, let's say, the GIPC Act and what the Constitution requires that Parliament can do from time to time.
Tax exemptions. Yes. This will be the first kind of bill.
It will be the first kind of bill that seeks to spell out who qualifies, and it is part of the effort to ensure that what we call the leakage in our national basket is plugged, because the view is that too many tax exemptions go through, and that we need to legislate a framework for who and what qualifies. It's one of the bills that we are looking at. We are hoping to lay the broadcasting bill from my ministry.
Great.
Before this meeting is over.
Broadcasting bill is regulating content?
No, it's actually regulating or spelling out how the regulators, we have twin regulators in our industry, the NC and the NMC. Among other things, the relationship between these when it comes to those who want to do what we call broadcasting through traditional broadcasting channels. But we're also hoping that it will deal with some of the emerging issues that can relate to content and lay a foundation for which the NMC can do its broadcast standards regulation, which hopefully should not be unconstitutional this time around.
Will it affect content that comes from internet outside the country?
It's part of the considerations.
I'm referring to, what was his name again? Chini George or something like that.
Well,
I'm referring to people like that who broadcast from the streets in Germany or in England or in America, and they're broadcasting about Ghana.
I believe in the old adage that says that you don't have to make laws about specific people or specific instances.
But whose content gets into your homes, my phone?
Those are the issues that we are looking to deal with. We've set up a very, very wide collaborative platform. I must say that I'm disappointed, though, because out of the about 15 stakeholder groups that came to this very elaborate platform that we did, and who we gave copies of the bill to and gave emerging issues to give us memos on, only 2 have submitted their memos as at now, and we've had to push down our calendar.
Then I need to collect a memo from you tomorrow.
I've
not seen it.
Well, it's been out there.
GIJ has it?
GIBA
has it?
GJ has it. GIBA has it. GIBA has brought us their revert and one other organization. Apart from them, all of the others are
15.
yet to.
Civil society?
Yeah, civil society groups included. They are yet to submit their memos.
This is a draft bill.
This is the draft bill which we inherited, and then a memo on the emerging issues, including some of those that you've mentioned, which we have added to it. That how do you think that these issues should be treated? And we've raised some options in there, so that when we sit down to complete government's position, we would have consulted broadly. Unfortunately, only about 2 of them have.
I'll speak to Kweku for it. I need a copy of
so far. But we are committed to, I think, within the next 5 weeks or so.
5 weeks is enough.
Wrapping up our work so that we can lay it.
But can I submit a personal memorandum?
Of course you can.
Can Evans Mensah submit a personal?
He can. He can.
Samens can submit.
Anybody.
Okay. So I'll take it. I'll take it from you and do that. Appointments committee, deputy ministers coming on.
Yes, coming on. I think the committee is met and scheduled a timetable for it. Which timetable should be out shortly. They have, if I am correct, already advertised, and so we're expecting that the vetting will start pretty shortly. It's been late in coming. We're hoping it.
How many deputies are you getting?
1.
Oh, okay, that's Fatima.
Yes, Fatima Abubakar.
Okay. Everybody was excited about that appointment.
We are also excited. I think I sent out a tweet that, hey, we're waiting for you at the ministry. Come and join us. I've worked with her in times past. And she's a very fantastic person, and we're hoping to have her on board to assist that. I'll miss my former deputies a lot, Pius and Dokua, who understand are going to different places. But we look forward to working with Fatih as well.
How was Kweku Oppong Nkrumah's birthday? I saw it on Facebook. I saw you talking about his birthday.
Well, yes, unfortunately I was in the constituency, so I couldn't participate. But I hear he did a lot of things on my blind side. Perhaps I should set up a team to look into it.
We were the hard-working assistant of the minister. It's called Kojo Oppong Nkrumah. He used to be on Joy FM, and he's in the studio here with us. Okay, important matters finished. Tomorrow, are we going to win the Europa Cup? Manchester United and Villarreal.
I hope so. These days,
what's your best 11?
I'm not sure I can give you a detail right now. But these days, United.
It's not that bad.
Sometimes
you miss Alex Ferguson.
Sometimes we flatter to disappoint.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping it will be a good night for us.
I see. And the Champions League, where's your bet on that on Saturday? Chelsea and Manchester City.
Because of United, I'll go with Chelsea.
Okay, you will go against Manchester City.
Absolutely.
Oh, you don't like them at all?
Well, we like to control the area. So with them on the other side.
Okay, so Chelsea for you.
Yeah.
Minister, thank you very much.
Thank you.
This is some of the most articulate explanations I've heard on all the big issues.